What we need in this moment is a king.
So Season 2 of House of the Dragon is finally over, huh? I think the world collectively agrees on the fact that the season needed a tad bit more action. The prequel show has taken a lot of liberties in terms of straying away from main arcs in Fire and Blood, and it really would not have harmed if they had reinvigorated a few plots to incorporate a bit more action in what felt like a filler season. But still, the latest season of House of the Dragon has introduced us to a lot of new characters, and while the prequel show might not have as many faces as Game of Thrones did, it still has a pretty big cast, with Rhaenyra and Aegon being the main focus. Each of their factions are surrounded by their own groups of warriors, politicians, and family members, scattered across different locations. We all know the major players on each side, but there are also some lesser-known faces worth exploring. Take Ser Alfred Broome, for example. Yep, I'm talking about the same annoying man who's a part of Rhaenyra's small council. While he mostly just sits at the table spouting off sexist comments, his story is supposed to take quite a dark turn in the upcoming seasons. I think the seed of evidence of that has already been sowed in the Season 2 finale, but many of you might have missed out on that moment amidst the overwhelming reunion between Daemon and Rhaenyra. Sexism has been one of the most common conflicts in House of the Dragon. A big part of the Dance of the Dragon is driven by many powerful men, who simply refuse to let a woman take control of a position of power. Even Alicent, who ruled the Seven Kingdoms while her husband was gravely ill, has faced considerable backlash from her own allies, simply because she's a woman. Throughout the show, many characters keep reminding us just how uncomfortable they are with the idea of a woman commanding them, but it really gets a bit ironic when some of these same characters are seen fighting tooth and nail to put a woman on the Iron Throne. Ever since Princess Rhaenys died, Alfred Broome has become a regular thorn in Rhaenyra's side during her small council meetings. He seems to have taken on the role of the contrarian with utmost pleasure, consistently challenging her decisions and passing sexist comments about women's ability to lead during wartime. Broome symbolizes the old ways of Westeros, while Rhaenyra represents change because she's fighting for her right to rule in a male-dominated society. And even though Broome has served her faithfully in many ways, he may not fully support what she stands for. While House of the Dragon might set up his upcoming betrayal under different circumstances, let's talk about what happens to Ser Alfred Broome at the end of the dance in Fire and Blood. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
The value of a sword is not within its scabbard.
Ser Alfred Broome has been a major pain in the ass for Queen Rhaenyra since the start. The Black Council is brimming with middle-aged men who think they can just boss around our queen and not face the brunt of it. Rhaenyra's small council just see her as a decorative statue who should rest in her chambers while they make the important decisions of the realm for her. Ser Alfred Broome is among these men in the council and lives in Dragonstone to serve as household knight for House Targaryen. Apparently, House Broome has served in Dragonstone's garrison for decades, almost dating back to King Jaehaerys' reign, which was around 20 years before the events of the prequel show. But along with many other lords, knights, and maesters, he had pledged his support to the Black faction when Aegon II usurped the Iron Throne, right after King Viserys' death. Whenever we see Rhaenyra entering her council room, she usually sees her family, but there are also other lords and knights like Alfred Broome who offer their input a bit more than necessary. Broome sits along with other advisors like Simon Staunton, Bartimus Celtigar, Stefan Darklin, and Gorman Massey on Rhaenyra's Black Council. But whenever Rhaenyra asks for their help, they're usually more of an annoying hindrance than anything else. While she tries her best to find ways to make peace, these egotistic men keep pushing for war and only seem to feel satisfied when their queen agrees to send her dragons against every damn army approaching them. We keep seeing Alfred along with other men spend a lot of time trying to edge Rhaenyra out of negotiations, so the men can take control for her. Throughout Season 2, he's been more than comfortable and quick to openly raise his voice in anger whenever he disagreed with the queen. But Broome's advice often gets ignored, especially before Rhaenys died and Daemon left for Harrenhal. His first significant suggestion came in the second episode of Season 2, when the news of Prince Jaehaerys' murder and funeral reached Dragonstone. Naturally, the Black Council was stuck dealing with the aftermath of Daemon Targaryen's brutal blood and cheese plot, as Otto Hightower had pushed Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen and Dowager Queen Alicent to go on a public funeral procession through the streets of King's Landing, with the stitched-up dead body of Prince Jaehaerys on display, so people could see the tyranny of Rhaenyra the Monstrous from up close. So in response to the Green faction spreading rumors that it was Rhaenyra who ordered the killing, Alfred Broome proposed that they counter the negative propaganda against Rhaenyra by claiming that the queen acted out of grief over her son Lucerys' murder at the hands of Aemon Targaryen. He seemed to have thought that it would be a good move for Rhaenyra to justify her grief by hiring assassins to kill a child as a crime of passion. Of course, Rhaenyra was offended and outright refused his suggestion, especially since she had no idea who even ordered the blood and cheese attack in the first place. When Alfred tries to defend his idea by framing it as an act of vengeance made in the heat of the moment, Princess Rhaenys steps in to rebuke him, causing him to fall silent. Later, Alfred chimes in again to criticize Rhaenyra for her lack of war experience, echoing the complaints of others in the small council. It was quite funny though when Rhaenyra reminded him that he served as a knight under her grandfather, King Jaehaerys the Conciliator, when the realm saw a time of unprecedented peace, which only means he's seen just as little war as she has. Every now and then, Alfred has been vocal about his disapproval of the Queen's decisions, be it in her absence or her presence. But after this argument, Rhaenyra decided to send Ser Alfred to Harrenhal and check on the progress Daemon has made in raising an army for her in the Riverlands. The Queen has also admitted on screen that part of her reason to send away this man from her council was actually to get rid of his constant, pointless quibbling and meddling. Now, Alfred's hostility has been building up to a huge twist in his arc for the future of the prequel show. While we do not see him for a good few episodes in Season 2, we do get to have the pleasure of seeing Queen Rhaenyra slap Bartimaeus Celtigar to remind him of his place. But the first hint of betrayal for the Queen's Blacks comes in the last episode of the season, when Alfred Broome finally arrives at Harrenhal to witness the gigantic army that Daemon has raised. It's the Castellan of Harrenhal, Sir Simon Strong, who brings Alfred to Daemon, causing the rogue prince to smirkingly comment on this interesting appearance. Alfred was very candid about telling him how he's been sent as an emissary from the Queen herself to find out about Daemon's progress and his intentions toward Rhaenyra. In response, Daemon mentions that Broome has arrived just in time to see his new army and that he aims to march out of the Riverlands before the Lannister army can catch him. While Alfred appreciates the large army Daemon has mustered, he pleads with the prince for a word in private. Soon we cut to a shot with them standing in the Godswood of Harrenhal, where Alfred insists on speaking honestly with Daemon, who in turn expects nothing less of him. But before Broome gets to his point, he mentions that he's always been faithful to Viserys, which is why he pledged his banners for Rhaenyra as the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. He then boldly declares that he would never serve Aegon the Usurper or the whelps of Old Town. And this is exactly where their conversation is interrupted by something in the wind, causing Alfred to pause, look around, and ask Daemon if he heard something. Now, Season 2 finale has done a pretty banger job in terms of foreshadowing the future of this civil war, but many of you might have missed out on this scene in Harrenhal, where we might not hear something in the wind, but we do see the closed captions mentioning a strange voice calling Alfred Broome a traitor. Well, this is indeed the beauty of Harrenhal, and certainly scary as hell. But Broome doesn't quite catch it, nor does Daemon, who simply states that Harrenhal will have sane men barking at the moon. Ironically, right after this, Alfred Broome makes a strong case of being a traitor by trying to stroke Daemon's ego. He's quite pissed that while the king consort has mustered a massive army, Rhaenyra has constantly faltered by making reckless decisions on her own, without paying any heed to the council's advice. Even though Daemon tries to stay diplomatic by saying that the queen will chart her own course of action, Broome calls him the true leader of men according to him. If Daemon ever declared his own claim to the Iron Throne, all the lords would betray Rhaenyra to follow him. Upon being called a turncloak, Alfred then expresses that while Rhaenyra has good intentions, Westeros needed a strong king. But Daemon does not comment on this proposition, even if he seems to have enjoyed the support of his misogynistic ally. As both of the men go their own ways, the scene ends with a shot of Sir Simon Strong listening in on their conversation. And if we've known anything from his role this season, it's that Simon is a hardcore Rhaenyra simp at heart. I mean, just imagine secretly sending a raven to Rhaenyra while Daemon was present within the castle. If he were to be caught by any chance, the old man would have become immediate dragon fodder. Anyway, circling back, the episode ended with Daemon having a change of mind after Alice Rivers took him on a confounding psychedelic experience by placing his hand on the weirwood tree. With the rogue prince finally bending the knee to his queen after seeing the error of his ways, we see the intense panic on Alfred Broome's face as he quietly shuffles himself out of the crowd. I'm pretty sure that given the recent turn of events, both Simon Strong and Daemon would not hold back information on his intention of betraying the queen, which means Broome is no longer safe. Now he should sleep with one eye open while reconsidering his allegiances, given that his provocation against Queen Rhaenyra might come to bite him back in the ass anytime now. What lies in Ser Alfred Broome's fate according to Fire and Blood? Well, like I said, all this intense hostility was actually building up to a twisted betrayal from Alfred Broome. But that only happens if the show decides to walk the same path as its source material. We did not see the fall of King's Landing this season. We did see Lord Larys Strong convincing King Aegon II to leave the Red Keep and escape before his brother or half-sister storms in for his head. Now, Fire and Blood maps a similar journey for Ser Alfred, as we saw in the prequel show. In the source material, Alfred Broome joined the Dragonstone garrison during the reign of King Jaehaerys Targaryen I. By the time the civil war between Rhaenyra and Aegon II broke out, Alfred had become the most senior knight on Dragonstone. However, when Queen Rhaenyra led the Blacks to seize King's Landing, she chose Sir Robert Quince as the Castellan of Dragonstone instead of Alfred, and that really bugged him, given that he was the senior-most member of the Dragonstone garrison. In the books, when Rhaenyra captures King's Landing, King Aegon is forced to flee the city with the help of Lord Larys Strong, who sneaks the king and his children out of the Red Keep. While he sends Jaehaera and Maelor away, Larys suggests Aegon to hide himself in Dragonstone, right under Rhaenyra's nose. At Dragonstone, Aegon also comes across Sunfire, who had been missing from the scene after the battle at Rook's Rest. After finally reuniting with his dragon, Aegon's supporters managed to find potential allies among the castle's garrison. By making a strong offer of wealth and lordship in exchange for protection, Alfred Broome was very easily swayed away from the Blacks to join the Greens. He then rallied a coup against Robert Quince, seizing control of the castle, and even going so far as to personally kill the Castellan by piercing a spear through his fat belly. After the duel between Sunfire and Moondancer, Sir Marston Waters intervened to stop Alfred from killing Moondancer's rider, Baela Targaryen, and suggested he take her captive instead. Later, when Rhaenyra, her son Aegon the Younger, and her few remaining allies returned back to Dragonstone after the assault on the Dragon Pit by the Smallfolk, Alfred led a 40-man escort to meet her at the port and take her to the castle. But upon reaching the premises, Rhaenyra was stunned to find the charred remains of Robert's fat body hanging from the gates of the Dragonstone castle. Alfred then had his men kill all of Rhaenyra's remaining Queensguard, which included Sir Harold Dark, Sir Adrian Redford, and Sir Loreth Lansdale, although it's worth mentioning that Sir Loreth did manage to take out 2 of Alfred's guards before he was killed. He then took the queen to his half-brother, who mocked her and then fed her to his dragon Sunfire, while her son watched. Apparently, Alfred's cloak caught fire when Sunfire scorched Rhaenyra. After the queen's death, he was also the one to suggest to Aegon II that they should also kill Rhaenyra's son Aegon III, but the king chose to keep the boy alive and hold him as a hostage instead. Later, Ser Alfred Broome went with Aegon II when the king returned back to King's Landing. He also carried out the execution of Trystane Truefire, who had been sentenced to death for treason. Alfred was also at the small council meeting after the defeat of the Greens at the Battle of the King's Road, when Aegon II refused to surrender and Queen Alicent Hightower proposed mutilating one of the ears of their hostage, Aegon the Younger. The king ordered Alfred Broome to carry out the gruesome task, but when he tried to cross the drawbridge to Maegor's Holdfast, Broome found Sir Perkin the Flea and 6 of his gutter knights blocking the way. Of course, he demanded them to move aside in the king's name, but Perkin responded by saying there was a new king, placed a hand on Alfred's shoulder, and shoved him off the drawbridge, causing his body to land upon the iron spikes in the trench below. Apparently, Alfred suffered for 2 whole days, writhing in pain, before finally taking his last breath. So even if Rhaenyra doesn't win the Dance of the Dragons, neither does Aegon, and at the end, justice is finally served, with the betrayers and the usurpers finally getting what they deserve.
I merely thought, perhaps, an action taken in haste.
Mind yourself.
How would House of the Dragon deal with Ser Alfred Broome's fate in the upcoming seasons? With all honesty, the scene between Alfred and Daemon at Harrenhal was not supposed to happen, as the books have no mention of it. In fact, in Fire and Blood, Ser Alfred Broome never goes to Harrenhal at the Queen's command, and his betrayal comes much later in the show. After Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, and a few important members from both sides of the Civil War lose their lives. We haven't even had the battles of Butcher's Ball, Tumbletown, Red Fork, or God's Eye yet, and Broome's treachery literally comes after the storming of the Dragon Pit in the books. But House of the Dragon seems to have paced that up in this case, given that Simon Strong or Daemon Targaryen will inevitably stitch on Alfred Broome to their queen, and for good reason. Dude has no other option but to change sides. Seeing how he slowly backed out of the army at Harrenhal, while they were screaming praises for Rhaenyra, I'm 100% certain that this man will indeed go and pledge his allegiance to the Greens, and the so-called whelps at Old Town. And we really don't have to wait until after the storming of the Dragon Pit for that, because by the look of it, the Weasel will probably betray Rhaenyra and the Black Faction in the early phase of Season 3 itself. Now that we're at the end of our video, what are your thoughts about this character? Will Ser Alfred Broome betray Rhaenyra and join the Green faction sooner than we think? Or will House of the Dragon wait till the storming of the Dragon Pit to make him appear on the scene again? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!